Welcome to RaWMachines, a journey to discover some of the most impressive processes around the world. Today, we will step inside three antique sawmills, Hope Mill, Aursfjordsaga, and even Corkum's Mill, places where the power of water and steam transforms rough lumber into unique and vibrant boards. It's a short trip, but long enough to witness an entire mechanical era come back to life in every rotation and every beat. Let's start right now. Before electricity, steam was the most miraculous energy humanity ever harnessed. It transformed rivers into veins, pressure into power, and the hands of a craftsman into a source of wonder. Although electrical power and diesel engines now dominate, steam has not completely disappeared. In a few places, smoke still rises, wheels still turn, and the steam engine still resonates in the morning mist. The Hope Mill Sawmill in Ontario, Canada, is a prime example. Now, join me to discover what makes this sawmill so special. The mornings in the Lang region of Ontario are often covered by a thin layer of mist. The Indian River flows gently like a silver ribbon, winding through the ancient maple forest. Nestled beside that river is the Hope Mill Sawmill. It is unassuming and quiet, but it possesses a character that makes anyone who approaches feel as though they are stepping into a different era. Hope Mill was originally built in 1835 as a wool carding and fulling mill. Following a major fire in 1880, the site was forced to change, donning the appearance of a steam-powered sawmill. By the 1960s, the mill ceased operation. The old machines began a long slumber in the dust. Local residents thought Hope Mill would become nothing more than a wooden frame awaiting decay. But in 2000, a group of retired craftsmen performed an inspiring act. They restored it. Today, Hope Mill has come back to life, not as a museum frame behind glass, but as a real working sawmill where everything operates smoothly. A day at Hope Mill always begins with the water. The log pond next to the mill is like an inn for the giant logs that have just arrived from the forest. They float on the surface, their rough bark stained with sap and clinging moss. Soaking the logs is not a random act, it is an old science. When wood rests in water for a few days, the grain swells evenly, softens, and any grit, rock, or deep forest soil attached to the bark is washed away. The steel saw blade thus avoids dangerous shocks that could damage the entire machine. The old saying goes, if you want the wood to behave, let the water coax it first. Hope Mill strictly adheres to this. From the pond, the log is pulled into the mill by a system of chains and gears. Its operating principle is simple yet elegant. Water meets fire, steam creates pressure, and pressure awakens the steel. That primal chain reaction laid the foundation for modern industry today. When standing next to the engine, one senses something. Steam does not just transmit power, it transmits a spirit. It forces the craftsman to listen, to understand, and to observe. It is this very nature of steam that made the antique world very similar to the world of the modern artisan. There is no room for haste. When the pressure reaches the standard level, the operator gently opens the valve. The carriage, a steel platform running on rails, pulls the log toward the circular saw. The 55-inch diameter blade begins to spin at lightning speed. When steel meets wood, a sound rings out. Not a piercing screech, but a deep, sharp tone, like a stringed instrument being drawn with just the right tension. The first cut is always the most difficult decision. It determines how the entire log will be used, its economic value, and the aesthetic beauty of the resulting boards. The saw blade cuts deep into the log, spraying out golden sawdust, reminiscent of the cozy wooden homes of previous generations. After cutting, the boards are taken to the planer and grinder area until the surface is smooth. Outside, the finished timbers are stacked high in rows, each piece bearing the mill's mark and specifications. Many of these timbers will leave Ontario, traveling thousands of miles to serve new construction projects.
The sawdust is taken by a local farmer and used to bed animals.
The byproducts here also have a life of their own. Sawdust is collected by farmers to use as bedding for livestock. Wood scraps are used to fire the boiler, keeping the engine running. Cut lumber is sold to the local community.
The home of a local resident.
The craftsmen here are quiet, but deeply proud. They do not boast. They simply smile lightly when visitors ask why they still do this work, despite their advanced age. To them, the machines are friends, and they do not want their friends to be abandoned or forgotten. Every sound in the mill is so familiar that they can detect an abnormality just by tilting their head. And in the way they wipe down a bolt or adjust a belt, one clearly senses the respect for their craft, for history, and for the mill itself. As the sun sets, the orange light falls over the old wooden roof. The final hiss of steam releases from the valve like a farewell, concluding a long day. Hope Mill returns to silence, but its spirit remains. In the wood, in the wind, and in the stories the locals still tell visitors about a time when the steam engine was the heart of the world. After leaving Ontario, our journey continues across the ocean, through the northern spruce forests, and into a new land. There, instead of the sound of a steam piston, the dominant sound is the steady flow of water. Aursfjordsaga needs no signposts or grand entrance. It sits humbly nestled in a gorge, like a house fully embraced by nature. The wooden roof is covered in green moss. The wooden walls are blackened by rain and snow. No one built this mill to impress. The ancestors erected it to endure alongside the mountains and forests. The unique feature of this mill is that it does not use steam. It belongs to an even earlier era, the era of water power. The water wheel here is an overshot wheel type. The water does not strike the bottom of the wheel in the usual way. It is channeled into a high flume and poured over the top of the wheel, using gravity to generate a stronger rotational force. In physics, this is known as harnessing the potential energy of water. Step inside, and you enter a mechanical world that runs without electricity. At the heart of the workshop is the frame saw, a slim steel frame fitted with a long vertical blade. When the water-powered drive shaft turns, the connecting rod mechanism converts that rotation into a steady up and down motion. The blade doesn't whip back and forth like a modern band saw, but it cuts with enough strength and precision to preserve the natural continuity of the wood grain.
Slapp og snurr hjulet.
sound is unlike anything you'd hear at Hope Mill or the Corkum Mill. Not the sharp metallic scream of modern steel, but a heavy, rounded rhythm. Thump, 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 echoing like footsteps on a wooden floor. As the blade works through the log, tiny flecks of wood fall to the ground, forming a soft layer as fine as golden sand. The saw is usually operated by Pedersen, a man who can read both wood and water. He says reading the grain is only the beginning. What matters more is understanding the moisture inside the log, feeling the vibration in the saw table, and listening to the water as it hits the drive wheel. If the water runs stronger than usual, the sound becomes deeper and heavier. If the wood is too dry, the saw's tone sharpens and rings. With just a few beats, he knows whether to adjust the water gate or rotate the log ever so slightly. Not everyone in the valley is a logger or a carpenter, but everyone views Aursfjordsaga as part of the community's memory. Children are brought here in the summer to see the water run the ancient machine. The elders come here like visiting an old friend. Tourists also stand for a long time at the mill entrance, not just to take photos, but to listen to the sound of the water, a sound that urban life lost long ago. Not only that, but the mill also operates on a completely sustainable model. There are no emissions, no machine oil, no industrial noise. The water, after driving the wheel, returns to the stream intact. Wood shavings are collected to be used as mulch for local farms. The cut lumber serves the local construction needs. Aursfjordsaga reminds us that technology does not necessarily have to be loud. It does not have to be bright, gleaming metal. Sometimes it just needs to blend with nature, operating in a way that is durable, sustainable, and full of humanity. As the afternoon descends, the sounds of the sawmill gradually fade. And in that stillness, Aursfjordsaga gives us the feeling that it will live on for a very long time. Not because it is powerful, but because it is durable. Not because it resists the new era, but because it chooses to exist true to its nature. A mill powered by water, by wood, and by the rhythm of humanity and the earth. It doesn't just tell stories of the past. It teaches us how to look toward the future with the quiet eyes of those who know that progress is not always about running faster. Sometimes progress is knowing when to slow down to preserve what is most essential. Now, join me as we visit the final sawmill. Here, there are no arrays of laser scanners, no automated conveyor belts. There is only one man, one saw, and the accumulated experience of a lifetime in the trade. His name is Ivan Corkum. The mill was built around 1913, and even is the third generation to take over this work. The entire structure is built with local wood. The wall boards are thick, the support posts are rough, and the sloping roof is covered with old corrugated metal. Stepping inside, one clearly sees the marks of time, but the astonishing thing is that everything is still working. Every gear, every belt, every bearing, every rotating shaft, all are alive. The operational principle of the mill has not changed since day one. It is still the same old boiler tucked in the corner, the same iron pipes wrapped in hand-stitched insulating cloth, and the same steady piston beat in the engine room. Ivan calls it the old reliable, the machine he trusts as much as his own breath. It is not powerful, not large, not fast, but it is durable, stable, and as familiar as a family member. When a log is rolled in from the yard, it bypasses any debarking machine or sensor system. Ivan personally inspects each log, then chooses the most suitable cutting strategy. After that, the wood is placed on the carriage and the saw begins its work. The long bandsaw blade, powered by a flywheel driven by steam, oscillates steadily, not as fast as modern machines, but solid and rhythmic. Every time Ivan pushes the carriage, you can feel the caution in each movement. A cut too deep could ruin the entire log. A cut too shallow wastes resources. Everything must be gauged by intuition honed over decades. When the first board separates, Ivan pauses to observe the exposed grain. Sometimes he immediately changes the cutting direction, as if the log just offered a new suggestion. In his mill, wood is not inanimate material. It has its own temperament, and a good craftsman knows how to listen and understand it. Another unique detail, The mill has only one bandsaw, but it handles every task, from the main cut, trimming edges, to resawing. There are no separating lines, no curved sawing systems, no automation to assist. This simplicity connects every stage directly to the hand of the craftsman. The speed may be slow, but in return, every board bears a personal mark, something large industrial mills struggle to replicate. After sawing, Ivan uses a small planer to smooth the surface. Each pass of the planer creates a clean, light sound, like the soft sigh of the wood being released from its final roughness. The true value of the Corkum mill is not in its productivity, but in the relationship between the mill and the community. Local residents do not come here to place large bulk orders. They bring their stories. I need a few boards to repair the sheep pen for winter. I want a timber to rebuild the porch roof. Ivan listens to each story, then nods gently. Let me see which log is best for that job. Over time, this sawmill has become a cultural piece of Nova Scotia. It does not compete with industrial mills. It stands there to remind us that craftsmanship has its own inherent value, the value of patience, of inherited knowledge, and of respect for the material. And thanks to it, a piece of the steam-powered world still lives, continuing to tell its story to future generations. As the journey concludes, the viewer feels as though they have just stepped out of a deep forest, where time has enough weight to slow down even one's breath. The 3 sawmills we visited, Hope Mill, Aursfjordsaga, and Ivan Corkum's family mill, do not just represent 3 different regions. They are 3 evolutionary states of human engineering. One runs on scorching steam, one operates using the cold stream water from the mountains, and one thrives on manual craftsmanship. Yet, despite their different forms, all 3 share the most essential core. Humanity once learned how to transform primal energy into precise movement and use those movements to write the history of wood. From these 3 mills, we clearly see something that modern industry sometimes forgets. Engineering is not just about speed and output. Engineering is also about understanding the material, respecting the energy source, and being humble before the limits set by nature. The craftsmen in these old sawmills do not simply operate the machinery, they converse with it. They hear signals that ordinary people do not recognize. And in turn, the machines respond with stability and loyalty, provided they are cared for correctly. Now, as the episode closes, we can hear something very quiet, yet persistent. The hiss of steam at Hope Mill, the sound of Ivan's pen, and the drop of water seems to wear into the core. It is the chord of tradition, of ingenuity, and of the spirit of honest labor. It reminds us that the most enduring values are those that can stand firm against the passage of time. And like every story in the large family of RaWMachines, this episode ends with a conviction. Machines may change, technology may become more modern, but the reverence for the craft, for the material, and for the people who build the world with their own hands will always be timeless. 3 sawmills, 3 rhythms of life, 3 sources of engineering power. They are still there, patient like wood, durable like water, and powerful like heat. And as long as one old mill door is still opened every morning, their story will continue for a long time.